Special Weather Authority storm coverage is sponsored by Casco Bay Generators.
First here at noon, Hurricane Lee, now a post-tropical cyclone, is a direct hit for the Canadian Maritimes and bringing powerful winds and rain to parts of Maine.
Yeah, the storm did wobble a bit further east over the past couple of days or so. Certainly good news for many of us. In fact, that's great news for Maine. But as expected, we are seeing tens of thousands of power outages with a wide range of impacts really in many parts of Maine. Some dry air has been sucking out a lot of the rain for southern Maine. Certainly, again, more good news. But we are seeing a strong storm for a lot of other places, and it's far from over.
At last check, around 45,000 CMP customers are without power. We are seeing the most outages right now in Lincoln County for CMP. Versant Power also reporting major outages. At last check, they had around 34,000 customers affected.
Yeah, Versant says currently the wind is too strong actually in those areas for their crews to work in their bucket trucks. Once that wind dies down below 35 miles an hour, they're going to head out, assess the damage, and get to it. Speaking of getting to it, let's get right to your forecast now with Chief Meteorologist Charlie LaPresti. Tell us the latest here, Chuck.
Well, hey, guys. So far, the storm's been pretty manageable for us, right? We had a peak wind gust in Portland of 43 miles per hour, and we'll get a few more gusts over 40 miles per hour. Things start to wind down later this afternoon. As expected, this has not been a big rainmaker. We're seeing a storm that's moving up through into western parts of Nova Scotia into the Bay of Fundy. All the dry air is just eating away at the edge of some of that rainfall here. So what can we expect this afternoon? Well, we can expect some more scattered outages. Gusts over 40 miles per hour should be expected. The peak wind gust so far is up in the Bangor region. I've seen a few spots there, a little over 50 miles per hour. And waves, we're approaching high tide over the next hour or so. Waves will be running 10 to 20 feet. Coastal flooding is not expected to play a huge role in this storm system, which is good news here, but we still have those monster waves, so splash over and beach erosion should be expected there. Okay, so peak wind gusts so far, Portland's up to 43 miles per hour, Augusta right around 50 miles per hour, Bangor coming in with around 51 miles per hour, and current wind gusts within the last few minutes, many areas are gusting a little over 30 miles per hour. Notice Augusta right around 50 here. So we're looking at so far a pretty manageable storm. There's some pretty strong winds aloft, and so far we've been lucky. A lot of that has not mixed down to the ground level. So if everything works out here, we can say goodnight to the storm later on this afternoon, and we'll enjoy the second part of the weekend. We are seeing some sunny breaks out there. That will continue this afternoon. Winds will be gusting at times a little over 40 miles per hour at 2 o'clock or so. As we take you through the late afternoon and early evening hours, notice how winds are still gusting upper 30s and low 40s here. And overnight hours tonight, skies clear out area-wide, even areas that are seeing some rainfall now. We'll see a clear sky later on tonight. So the timing, it stays windy through about 4 or 5 o'clock or so. Some gusts over 40 miles per hour should be expected. So additional outages are on the way. I do not think this is worst case scenario, though. We're not getting a hurricane. We're on the edge of a post-tropical cyclone, more of a nor'easter style storm right now. And coastal concerns, yeah, we're still watching those big waves. High tide is at 12:47. We're going to talk to Ryan about that in more detail. And we're going to check in with some of our reporters coming up in just a few minutes. More on all of this and, of course, a nicer second part of the weekend coming up in a few minutes. Mercer and Greg, back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Don't often say that an ocean storm is worse for Bangor than Portland, but hey, that's the way it's been so far today. We want to continue our team coverage right now. The mid-coast seeing some of those strong winds, high surf. We do have reports of trees down in that area. In fact, let's get to it. CBS 13's Asia Reed. She's live for us right now in Rockland. And Asia, we can see behind you there a lot of damage. Set the scene for us.
Guys, we are in Rockland right now on West Meadow Road, and you guys, check this out. See this tree over here? It fell on this car just a few hours ago. It's a massive tree. We got this front part here, and then right up here, this tree crushed the top part, and residents here tell me that their roommate was just about to leave for work, and this scene unfolded here. And Jesse here lives right across the street, and he tells me that they have no power right now. Jesse, tell me, about this scene right here, exactly what happened.
Well, so I was over at my house, and power was like on for the morning, and then it kind of flickered a little bit. It was off and on. And then I was over like having my morning grumper, and like I heard this like crash. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna like get killed because this tree's gonna fall on my house. And luckily it wasn't my house, unfortunately. I mean, lucky for me, it weren't my house, but it was across the way. And it didn't hit no houses, but it did smash this Prius.
How long have you guys been without power for?
A couple hours, probably, like it was, when did the power go out? I mean, I bet the power went out around 8 or so.
Do you guys have any generators? Are you guys all set? Anything like that?
We do not have a generator, but we do have a wood stove. And we do.
That's a good thing.
Yep. And we prepped a little bit, battened down the hatches. We got like 5 gallons of water, and we got rain barrels and stuff. So we've got like water for like utility purposes.
How is your roommate feeling knowing that this happened? She's not here right now, is she?
No. They had to go to work, but they're pissed. So it's like smashy, you know, on the car, and like when like they were just getting ready to go to work and nothing doing. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for talking with us, Jesse. They have no power at both of these houses right now. And later on, we're going to talk to some folks from Wisconsin who say they're all the way up here and they've never experienced something like this before. We're live in Rockland. I'm Asia Reed. I'm going to send it back over to you guys.
Well, quite a scene there, Asia. Thank you. And certainly glad nobody was in that car and wasn't hurt. Meteorologist Emily Santom is in Southport this morning. That's near Booth Bay. And Emily, the wind has been really strong there along the coast. At times, you said you've had a hard time walking where you are.
Yeah, Marissa, earlier on today, I was literally being pushed across the wharf here. The wind is beginning to pick up, and it's actually raining here. There was probably an hour or two where we weren't seeing any rain at all. It was raining a little bit this morning, but now the rain and the wind is really picking up. I'm thinking gusts at least into the upper 30s, even 40s. It's blowing my hat. We have super big waves, too. We're looking at around 10, 20 feet. I would not be surprised if these waves topped out at 20 feet, and that's 20 feet from the lowest part of the wave, the trough, to the highest part, the crest. Overall, our real factor is just the wind right now. It is raining, lots of gusty winds. The birds have given up on flying. Really out in the ocean, we're in a harbor right now, so the water is pretty calm here, just getting pushed around with the wind. Out in the open ocean, very choppy waves. We're looking, like I said, about 20 feet. Spoke with a resident that lives on the island a little bit ago, and they said that most of the island doesn't even have power. I took a little walk up to the library earlier on, and I just heard a lot of generators. So overall, it's wind, waves, power outages, trees down. Heard of a lot of storm reports throughout the entire day. So I can touch base with you in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to be live in Southport, and meteorologist Emily Santom sending it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Emily, appreciate it. Well, right now, much of southern Maine, as you can see if you're in southern Maine looking out your window, has been largely spared, but not everybody. Maine Forest Rangers responding to downed trees right now elsewhere from Lee's powerful winds.
And this video shows a Maine ranger helping DOT to remove a large white tree from Route 191 in Catance Township. That's near Calais. Definitely some trees down. You can see the wind really blowing them around there.
And in Noblesboro, let's show you that. Mid-Coast Maine, as our own Asia Reed showed us a moment ago, crews have been responding to downed trees and downed lines there. This was from Atlantic Highway earlier. In fact, we again have multiple reports of trees down, including some very big ones.
Right now, Lincoln County, where Noblesboro is seeing more than 7,000 outages. Also, thousands of outages across the state right now. Certainly, CMP crews staying very busy.
Yeah, that's been kind of the bullseye, at least for our areas. Knox County, Lincoln County so far.
We want to give you one more look in Rockport this afternoon. See that tree that fell on the car? Certainly pretty windy up there.
Yeah, I think that's actually a neighboring Rockland right there. But yeah, a lot of damage out there. We're tracking it for you, keeping you safe out there. We'll be right back. Well, if you plan on using a generator in this case, and again, with tens of thousands of outages, many people are, there are a few safety things to remember. FEMA putting out some of those reminders. First of all, want to remind you of this. Never use a generator indoors. Don't do it. We see it happen in storms all the time. Don't do it. Don't operate them near windows, open doors. It can raise the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning and fires as well. Install battery-operated carbon monoxide detectors and a lot more. Again, you can get more information on the FEMA website. Meantime, let's go ahead and go out live as we dump out of this real fast because we're getting some reports from our CBS 13's Mal Meyer. Mal, what are you seeing out there?
Well, we actually just saw a young woman right over there get absolutely soaked. She was sitting out on the rocks, and this shows how just dangerous these waves can be. They were swelling pretty big just a short time ago, but as we approach high tide here, you know, she was sitting out on the rock, and luckily she is okay. But this shows you how quickly these waves can change. They have been so big out here by Two Lights. And again, here comes another big wave coming, crashing down our way. You know, when we were down on the Eastern Prom earlier today, we were just not seeing really any waves down that direction. But here is quite a different scene. And again, this just shows how dangerous that can be. Luckily, she does seem to be okay, but she was out there on the rocks with a bunch of other people. We've been seeing people down on these rocks over here as well. So, of course, the winds aren't that bad down in this area, but we did pick up some wind gusts about 23 miles per hour using our wind gauge a short time ago. So, of course, as Mainers love to do, they love to come and check out the storm, see the effects, and check out the waves. And these ones are quite big as we watch them rolling up on the rocks. But again, if you are going out, you got to be so careful because things can quickly change and you just don't know when that's going to happen. So again, just a short time ago, right before we came to you, we did see one woman get soaked because she was out on the rocks with a group of other people, but luckily it does seem like she's doing okay. So again, the waves are quite high here as we're approaching high tide at 12:47, so that will be coming up in just a little bit. Reporting live in Cape Elizabeth, I'm Mel Meyer, back over to you.
All right, Mal, thank you very much. I want to pick up real quickly on something Mal just pointed out. Those waves, we've got the winds directly out of the north, the storm obviously pushing the surge from the south. That can create a fairly rare circumstance where the waves can build behind that wind and then the waves, and you can have some of those rogue waves. We had this happen to us in 2009, the edges of Hurricane Bill, and we actually had several people near Acadia National Park swept into the ocean, and a 7-year-old girl was killed. So if you are planning to go out, if you're planning to watch the waves, obviously lots of people are planning to do that. As Mal just said, be careful. That can be extremely dangerous, and there can be a rogue wave that will catch you by surprise, and we don't want to see that here today. All right, let's continue our coverage now. CBS 13's Dave Eady's joining us now live at Old Orchard Beach. And again, Dave, speaking of the waves, you got the sandbar there, so you don't have the same buildup as we have around rocks. But Dave, what have you been seeing out there at Old Orchard Beach?
Well, Greg, good afternoon. You mentioned the folks coming out to look at the waves. I want to give you a shot. There's a lot of people here on Old Orchard Beach that have come out and taken a look at the waves. Now, we have been here since roughly about 7:30 this morning. The highest I saw the waves, during the morning hours was about 5 feet, maybe 6, 7 feet. Take a look at the waves now that are starting to build here. We're right outside the pier, and some of the waves are, right behind me, 20 feet. It is really picking up here. And as Mal mentioned, high tide is coming up, and oh boy. Thank goodness I've got some waterproof boots, but I did feel a little bit of a splash. But really, the folks have been coming out all morning long, all afternoon long, getting some pictures of the waves. I caught up with a young lady from Minnesota who was in Maine celebrating her 50th birthday, and she didn't seem to mind the storm one bit.
So all the locals aren't nervous, which makes me laugh because it reminds me of home. Like, we don't get nervous of blizzards, so they're not nervous of this. So I feel like we're okay.
Yeah, and her flight, she says she hopes will leave tomorrow back to Minnesota, but really a majestic scene here at Old Orchard Beach. I do want to mention one other thing about the historic pier here. A lot of Mainers remember back in 1978, the great blizzard of 1978. It wasn't the snow that destroyed most of the pier. It was the high winds, and we're seeing the winds really starting to intensify here on the beach. In fact, it's picking up the sand, blowing it all over the place, and it's obviously with the waves and the strength of the sea has been just really majestic here along the beach. Things have definitely intensified a little bit from this morning to right now. We'll have another live update for you coming up in just a little bit. Live in Old Orchard Beach, I'm CBS 13's Dave Eady. Guys, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Dave, thanks so much. Right now, FEMA is here in Maine, ready to help if needed with what's next.
There are definitely boots on the ground. Urban search and rescue is another layer of support that's provided. So there are resources in place in case people find themselves in a position to need rescue. And of course, all the assets that are there at the state's request are where they need to be.
This FEMA aid is available after President Biden approved Governor Janet Mills' emergency declaration request, an action which the governor is applauding. Governor Mills says this is helping crews better prepare for any possible damage related to Lee's remnants. Maine's Emergency Management Agency has now fully activated to monitor the storm's anticipated impacts as well. And while the storm has weakened in recent days, MEMA says it is still expecting pretty widespread damage, especially from those heavy winds.
That wind field is over 300 miles long, so the state will get damages. We will lose power.
Director Rogers says MEMA has been in contact with the state's major electric utilities. They're mostly worried about tree damage after the already wet summer we've had, meaning every section of the state could be vulnerable to outages today.
Yeah, and as we've been saying, there's about 80,000 between CMP and Versant right now. So if you have your power, yeah, be grateful. If you have lost your power, obviously people working to bring it back when the winds are safe. Here's a live look outside right now from our Portland Skycam. Yeah, we want to emphasize this. Portland area, we've been largely spared from this. And I want to keep using this word. I feel grateful for that. Preparing and then not getting hit isn't the same as preparing and then thinking that nothing happened and it wasn't worth it. Preparing is good, and we're grateful here in Portland that we're not taking a direct hit from this.
Yeah, no rain out there today,
No.
mostly in Portland. You can see our Skycam is shaking. It's pretty wobbly, so certainly the wind's still something to watch at this point. Let's check in again with Chief Meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. And I know you were saying this is kind of the window of time for the peak wind gust today.
Yeah, what's happening is there's some stronger winds aloft, and as the atmosphere mixes out, you get the daytime heating, you get some of that wind that mixes down to the ground level. So we're starting to see that. We have not had worst case scenario, which is great news.
Yeah. Right.
We're gusting over 40 miles per hour in Portland. 43 was the peak wind gust. A few gusts over 50 miles per hour up towards the Bangor area. Augusta is gusting to around 50 miles per hour. So forecast is verifying as far as the wind gusts go, and the good news is we're not seeing a ton of outages either. At last check, I think CMP is up to about 50,000 customers without power, about 49,000 or something like that to be exact here. Ryan, I need the graphics, buddy, all right? I'm going to grab those back, all right? Let's take a look at, let's go back to this for a second here. Right now we're looking at a temperature of 67 degrees in Portland. The dew point temperature is 51, so it's nice and dry out there, and that is leading to the western edge of the rainfall drying up. That is Portland headlight from our Portland Skycam. It's shaking around a little bit right there, and the dry air is definitely playing a role in this forecast here. All right, temperatures or the winds are still gusting over 30 miles per hour. Augusta right around 50 miles per hour right now. Peak wind gusts so far have been coming in a little over 40 miles per hour. Portland coming in at 43 miles per hour so far. Augusta right around 50. Bangor 51 miles per hour. It's been pretty manageable. We can handle 30 to 35 miles per hour. There may be a few more gusts in these areas that haven't had peak gusts around 40 yet that get up over 40 miles per hour. So that's a possibility this afternoon. And additional power outages are possible here, but this is not worst case scenario. I've seen a lot of misinformation online here, so let's remember, we're not getting a hurricane hit or anything like that in Maine. Last hurricane hit in New England was August 19th, 1991. We're not getting that. We're on the edge of what was a hurricane, now a post-tropical cyclone. This is post-tropical cyclone Lee, and we are looking at basically some rainfall over down East Maine and some gusty winds that are trying to mix in or mix down from above. And as we get some sunny breaks, that's when we're seeing our strongest winds. And I think as we go through about 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon, we'll start to see some improvement there. Let's get a little bit closer on where it's raining right now. Those of you who are towards Rockland, Belfast, Camden, up into the Bangor area, that's where we're seeing some steady rainfall. For the rest of us over western Maine, as expected, this is not a big rainmaker there. So the rain is primarily over eastern Maine, courtesy of now post-tropical cyclone Lee. Winds in the, the center, 75 miles per hour. But this is basically a glorified nor'easter at this point. Where do we expect, or what do we expect going forward? Well, we can expect a few more gusts over 40 miles per hour. Additional outages, I think, are likely, especially over eastern areas. And the other big story are the wave heights. We're looking at wave heights getting up over 10 feet. And we're approaching high tide. For more on that part of the story, let's send it over to meteorologist Ryan Munn. And Ryan, you can take the weather graphics now. Over to you.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. Yes, so let's get a look at some of the wind gusts right now over the buoys, and you can see we have winds that are sustained upwards of 40 to 50 miles per hour on some of the buoys. Penobscot Bay, one of the strongest ones right now, 51 miles per hour. Over towards the central Maine shelf, we have a wind gust of around 49 miles per hour recently, and then you can see down to the south, the Portland buoy is right about 40 miles per hour. But as you head north, this is the area we really need to watch over the next several hours, as we are looking at high tide now approaching at 12:47. The wave heights right now, you can see the worst of it is still up towards down east. That was expected over the last couple days as we were tracking this storm, and you can see as you head down to the south, Portland buoy is now recording wave heights of around 9 feet over towards the western Maine shelf as well, and then over the open ocean, this is where wave heights are back to about 15 to 20 feet. And as we head through the next couple hours, we are going to see these waves slowly start to increase a little bit over the next hour or two, but then once the waves start to drop, that means, of course, high tide is now beginning to turn to low tide later on this afternoon and evening. The waves are going to slowly start to diminish, and by the time we get to tomorrow, you can see the time frame up here. We're looking at back to normal waves around 4 to 5 feet. So that's the wave side of the story. Charlie, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. No question about it. This is a storm system that's a big storm over eastern Maine going over toward Nova Scotia. It's much more manageable, I think, in southern and central Maine. But as Ryan mentioned, yeah, the waves are big. We're approaching high tide in the next hour or so. We're probably going to see probably some of the most splash over and beach erosion out of the system. The sun's going to make an appearance for many areas this afternoon, and full sun returns tomorrow. Hey, tomorrow's going to be a gorgeous day. Additional 40-mile-per-hour gusts are expected. I think most areas get gusts over 40 miles per hour for peak wind gusts. Portland, again, up over 43 miles per hour. Mount Washington's gusting to around 100 miles per hour right now. Where do we go for the afternoon? 2 o'clock or so, we're seeing some gusts around 40 to 45 miles per hour. We're starting to see that wind down during the evening hours. I think as we get to about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll see marked improvement there. And during the overnight hours tonight, I think this is pretty much over with at that point. We have temperatures running in the 60s area-wide. Those dew points are in the 50s. That's what's eating away at the leading edge of some of that rainfall. So we're not expecting much rain at all. Down East Maine, Mid-Coast Maine, you stand the greatest chance for getting over an inch of rain out of this one. So there were those peak wind gusts so far again. Some areas gusting over 40 miles per hour, approaching 50 miles per hour. And so far the power outages have been pretty manageable. We're under 100,000, which is good news. At last check, right around 50,000 coming in from CMP. This is about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Notice the steady, heavy stuff as far as the rainfall is moving out. We still have some gusty winds, though, and with some sunny breaks taking place, we're back down up around 70 degrees for air temperatures. And tomorrow, let me take you into tomorrow. We'll look for a lot of sunshine. Skies will clear out tonight. Temperatures will dip into the 50s and 60s. And I think tomorrow will be a delightful day, a little breezy, nothing we can't handle, but air temperatures should make it into the mid to upper 70s. Tomorrow is going to be a beautiful September day. All right, let's take a look at the 7-day. We have bright skies tomorrow. We have a little bit of rain moving in on Monday. After that, we have a great stretch of weather extending through most of next week here. So a pretty good looking stretch after today, and a little rain, a little bump in the road there on Monday. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll take a look at those wind gusts, CMP outages, the track of Lee. We'll iron it out for you again in just a few minutes. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, good looking 7-day forecast, Charlie. But first, as we've been saying, we got to get through Lee. Lee's been sweeping across Maine as expected. It's already proving to be a very busy weekend for crews from Central Maine Power.
CMP's Director of Corporate Communications, John Bree, joins us now on the phone with the latest on what they're seeing right now, the challenges they're expecting. Hi, John. Thanks so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about the outages you're seeing and, what areas in particular are being hit hard?
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, that's right. Reports from our crews out in the field, they've shared that the winds have picked up over the past hour. I think we're seeing the worst of that right now. So far, winds are strongest along the coast. So where we sit in Augusta currently, we're seeing strong winds as well. So we are out and we are working with local emergency management agencies to help make down power lines safe, to help remove trees that may be blocking access roads. But it might be a little time before we get to restoring because we do have safety concerns about putting our crews up in bucket trucks with high winds.
Yeah, talk about that if you can, John. We heard from Versant as well that when the wind's over 35 miles an hour, they're just not safe to put your crews up in bucket trucks. I imagine, as you're saying, you're encountering some of that as well. What sort of challenges are you facing out there trying to get this done throughout the day?
Yeah, that's right. So when the wind speeds are greater than 35 miles per hour, it is unsafe to put our crews in the bucket. During that time, we prioritize making downline safe, so no one is injured or hurt. In the event there are lines on the ground, we've heard Jim Wright say it for years. No line is safe to touch ever. We would really emphasize that today during this weather event.
John, thank you so much for taking the time to check in with us. I hope your crews stay safe out there today. Obviously, still a long way to go for now.
Yeah, we appreciate the effort that they're putting in out there. Let's take a live look right now. Old Orchard Beach once again. You knew what happened. There are some surfers out there on parts of the beach and along the coast of Maine. Hopefully they're staying safe out there. Certainly some waves are being picked up that they can enjoy out there.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. A number of places across the state are opening up their doors today for anyone who may need shelter from the storm. We're taking a live look at MEMA's website where a list of shelters is posted. Hopefully we can get that up there for you. There we go. Towns with shelters included on the list are Portland, Augusta, Ellsworth, Rockland, Bangor, and more. To see that full list, you can head to maine.gov/MEMA.
Oh, still happening today. Everybody working in Portland is making at least $21 an hour today. That's in response to the governor's official state of emergency. Portland's current minimum wage is $14 an hour, but under the city's hazard pay provision put in place during COVID, people working in Portland must make at least 1.5 times the city's minimum wage during a state of emergency. That is $21 an hour, and again, it's happening right now. That emergency minimum wage for tipped workers, that's $10.50 an hour plus tips. The emergency rate does not apply to anybody who's maybe working remotely.
And we want to take a moment now to look at some of the photos you've sent to us on Chime In. Russ sent us this picture he took in South Portland. If you look closely, you can actually see Fort Gorgeous all the way out there in the background. What a stunning sunset it was last night.
I make this pun almost every time, but when we see Fort Gorgeous, and it's a gorgeous picture, I love to tie that in. Yeah, we saw some great sunsets last night. Not so great when the waves are crashing along, though. This is from Marine. The waves off of Monhegan Island, Monhegan Harbor there, off the coast by the Pemaquid Point Lighthouse there. So that is impressive. Anyone riding it out in Monhegan and more points further down east, they're getting a lot more of a storm than we are.
Looks a little choppy out there.
Yes, it is.
And if you want to share your photos with us, we'd love to see them. Just head to our app and click on Chime In. There you can upload your pictures and videos. And you're taking a live look in Cape Elizabeth this afternoon. Some very big waves as we are nearing high tide. If you're headed out to maybe take a look, you do want to be careful.
Yeah, do what they're doing, it appears anyway. Stay back, view it from a safe distance because, again, we've heard it and seen it in the past. Rogue waves can come up in a situation like this, and it can be very, very dangerous, especially in your rocks. You're less concerned around the beach, but if you're on rocks, be careful out there if you check out the waves. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Taking a live look outside right now off our rooftop here in Portland. You can see it's not that bad out. It's not raining. The sky cam is actually not even shaking too much at this point. Doesn't look like a half bad day out there.
Obviously, most of our viewers are in the greater Portland area. If you're watching us right now in greater Portland, yes, think of it this way. This is a massive storm that if it had wobbled, maybe 100 miles west, this would be an entirely different situation. So thank goodness, bad news for Nova Scotia and down East Maine, but very good news for us here in the greater Portland area. Let's go ahead and bring in Chief Meteorologist Charlie Lepresti again to maybe explain that better than I just did. But anyone looking outside saying, why did we ramp up for this thing? Well, because there were risks there, and it's still happening, as we've been saying. Down east, mid-coast Maine, it's still a very legitimate storm.
I think it also has a lot to do with when a storm gets a name, it gets a lot more of attention, right?
Correct.
If we just had a regular nor'easter, we'd be like, okay, it's Saturday, in Maine. But we're not getting worst case scenario out of this. I've seen a lot of misinformation out there online all week long. A lot of folks are saying we're taking a direct hit from a hurricane here. That never was the case here, but we're on the edge of a hurricane becoming post-tropical. And the way to think of this is a nor'easter. And as expected, we're not getting much rain at all out of this one. In fact, my daughter asked if she could play her soccer game today. I said, yeah, as long as you don't mind it being a little windy, today's going to be a good day for soccer. But the wind is going to be a little bit of a factor over the next several hours here. This is not worst case scenario here. I think we're still going to get a few more gusts in that 40 to 50 mile per hour range. Portland's at a peak gust of 43 miles per hour so far. Augusta's up around 50 miles per hour. Some areas down York County, especially points south, the winds there are not going to verify. I think we're probably talking about gusts maybe a little over 35 miles per hour, which is good news there. And the power outages have been pretty manageable so far as well. We're up over 50,000 customers without power now from CMP, which is still a respectable amount of power outages. But let's remember, when you have leaves on the trees, anytime you're under 100,000 customers without power, I think we're in pretty good shape here. We're approaching high tide in the next 10 minutes. We'll continue to have waves running 10 to 20 feet. Many areas get that sun to return this afternoon. There's what's left of Lee making its way off to the north, and we have a clear sky for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a nice bright sunny day to end out the weekend. So if you have any small limbs down or maybe some trees down in the area, well, you can clean them up tomorrow. Or just spend the day outside. It should be a nice September day. There it is. Augusta's up around 50 miles per hour. Portland, 43 miles per hour. Many areas are gusting a little over 30 to 35 miles per hour. Look at Bangor, 52 miles per hour. We'll take a look at some of these peak gusts, what to expect for the rest of the afternoon, and the rest of the 7-day forecast that's coming up in a few minutes. Mercer and Greg, back to you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlie. As we've been reporting, tens of thousands of Mainers all around the state right now are without power. Here's the updated number. Currently, Central Maine Power reporting about 51,000 customers without power. We want to emphasize this, too. This isn't people. Those are customers. That represents roughly more than 100,000 people without power for CMP.
And meanwhile, Versant Power customers also seeing the impacts from Lee. At last check, Versant reporting around 32,000 customers affected from the storm. We will continue to follow outages both online and on air. Continuing our team coverage this afternoon, CBS 13's Asia Reed is for us live in Rockland. Asia, tell us what kind of conditions you're seeing out there right now.
Guys, we are at Breakwater in Marie Reed Park here in Rockland. And let me tell you, it is wet, it is cold, and it is rainy. I got my snow pants on today instead of my rain gear because of how cold and wet it is. Check out these waves over here. People are out here walking down the rocks. A lot of waves crashing up on here. I've gotten wet quite a few times here, but there's quite the amount of spectators out. Everyone's here just watching the waves. It's a pretty gorgeous view here, but extremely windy, a little bit dangerous out on the end there. And we just spoke to a couple who is actually all the way here from Wisconsin, and they said they weren't expecting this kind of weather. Let's cut to them.
It's a nice little Airbnb we're staying at. It's up in Hope, actually. And there's 2 trees down in the way coming down here. We had to go into the ditch on one of them. Good thing we got a 4-wheel drive car to do that. But we're hoping the power comes back on before we get back there.
Yeah, like they just said, they had no power, and we were just on West Meadow Road over in Rockland. They had no power either, so it seems like some folks are dealing with that right now. There's a lot of downed trees, and as you can see here, it is still very rainy and wet. It's getting rainier and wetter by the hour. We have a lot of adventurous people going down the rocks that way, getting some great pictures. But yeah, like I said, guys, it's still windy and rainy and wet, and we have tons of people here spectating. I'm going to send it back over to you guys. I'm Asia Reed. Back to you.
Asia, thanks so much. Certainly important to stay safe if you're headed out to look at the storm. Our team coverage continues now with CBS 13's Mal Meyer in Cape Elizabeth. Mal, when we talked to you earlier, there were also a lot of people headed out to Two Lights to get a look at the storm. It looks like you're still seeing the crowds out there.
Oh yeah, there's crowds all around us out here at Two Lights here in Cape Elizabeth. Lots of people coming down to check out the waves. And just a short time ago, there was a family that was out on the rocks behind me, and they were enjoying the waves, watching it closely, when all of a sudden a big wave just came right towards them. Now, most of the family was able to get out of the way, but Betsy was not able to, and the water came right over her. I just talked to her a short time ago, and she says that, this is something that they do all the time when there's a big storm coming this way. She comes down here with her family and checks it out.
I was taking videos and playing around with my phone with different videos and photos down at the other end, and then got up to get a closer look.
What did you think when you saw that wave coming towards you?
So my family called out the wave, so I knew it was coming, and I just held onto my phone and said, hold on to the phone, and get the video. So,
what was that like as the water rushed over you?
It was just a wall of white waves, and then I was soaking wet.
But you're doing okay now.
Oh yes. I knew I was safe. I was holding onto my phone. I was holding onto the rock. I was not worried about going swimming.
No, Betsy is still doing okay after I talked to her. She is a little bit wet, but overall okay. We are seeing people getting down really close to the water, but you never know when those waves can come crashing over you like what happened with her. Again, fortunately, she is doing okay, but definitely want to be careful if you're coming out and checking out these waves here at Two Lights. The waves are quite big. We are seeing some really sizable waves, so just really want to be careful out there. Reporting live in Cape Elizabeth, I'm Mal Meyer. Back over to you.
Yeah, good advice and good imagery happening behind Mal there in Cape Elizabeth. Most of those folks are being safe, staying further back, so that's where they should be, further back. Hey, from Cape Elizabeth to Old Orchard Beach now, let's go over to CBS 13's Dave Ead once again. And Dave, we're coming up on a high tide, pretty much right around now. What are you seeing out there in OOB?
Yeah, Greg, just like Mal mentioned, the waves are really starting to pick up, and we've seen them, crashing into the pier here. Look at the number of people that are out, checking out the waves. They've got their cell phones out. They're snapping videos and pictures, and we've seen a lot of local folks here. They're kind of used to big waves. Susan McNamara, you're from Leominster, Mass.
Leominster, yeah.
Up visiting, and I have to tell the story. Your hat blew off a little while ago, and the wind kind of took you. Just finish it there.
So I chased my hat and took a little tumble and got a little wet.
But it was well worth it. You still got the hat.
I got the hat. I saved my hat, and the water's actually not that cold. If it wasn't for the hurricane, I guess we'd be swimming.
The waves are pretty majestic.
Yeah, it's beautiful out, actually. Not what they said it would be.
No, I tell you, there are a lot of people here on Old Orchard Beach. Thank you so much, and you got the hat.
I saved my hat.
Okay, thanks so
you.
much. So, guys, yeah, there are a lot of folks here just checking things out. It is windy. As Charlie's been mentioning, we haven't had any rain at all to speak of here on the beach. But with the high tide coming in just a few minutes, the waves are really, really majestic. And we'll be following it for you the rest of the afternoon. Reporting live in OOB, I'm CBS 13's Dave Ead. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
Yeah, gotta hang on to your hat today, Dave. Thank you. And we do want to show you some pictures we're seeing from the Rockland Fire Department.
Yeah, much different scene for the Mid-Coast folks right now. They've had a lot more wind, a lot more damage. About 11 o'clock this morning, we're told they were on their 20th call of the day already. A lot of roads were blocked, down trees, down power lines. Asia Reed actually showed us a little while ago images of a large tree that had crushed a car there in Rockland.
Yeah, so a good reminder, if you are planning to travel through Rockland or really anywhere there up on the Mid-Coast, the fire department says just stay home if you can.
Yeah, good advice. Let's take a live look outside. Our Portland sky cam with Reed looking out. And all right, there's the wind. Get up aloft a little bit and you will have some wind. This is looking out over towards the ocean. And again, we continue to track the impacts of now post-tropical cyclone Lee, which is really battering the Maritimes of Canada right now, but for us, just a glancing blow. At least most of us here in southern Maine, just a glancing blow.
And it looks like Portland Headlight, right?
Yeah,
Way
we're
down
looking
in the
back towards
corner.
Portland Headlight, exactly right.
Yeah, you can see some of those big waves. Stay safe if you're headed out there. We'll be right back. We are continuing to track Lee right now with power outages top of many people's minds at the moment, but there are also concerns for the state's roads.
Yeah, Paul Merrill from the Maine Department of Transportation is joining us now live on the phone. And Paul, thanks so much, first off, for joining us right now on the phone and during this Saturday. Again, what's your message for folks out there who may be traveling? Again, we kind of have a mixed message. We know a lot of folks in southern Maine are sort of going about their business, seeing not a lot of impacts. But what is your advice? What are you seeing in other parts of the state?
Yeah, I mean, really, the primarily affected area is, mid-coast down east right now. We have a couple road closures. There's probably a dozen statewide, and half of those are down along the coast, trees down, things like that. I'm in southern Maine, and we've barely seen a drop of rain, but we're still holding tight just in case anything changes on short notice. If you are on the parts of the state that are being most impacted, obviously the same message for when it's snowing out. If you can afford to stay home, stay home. It's a Saturday, have the day indoors. If you have to go out, if you see any water on the roadway, don't try to cross it because you never know what's underneath it. If you see any downed power lines, don't approach them. And if you see any of our crews or any of our partners at CMP or MEMA or anywhere doing emergency response work, give them the time and the space they need to get their work done.
Yeah, all good advice, Paul. And you brought up snow. We're usually talking to you guys in winter with big snowstorms and blizzards. How was your preparation for this different? Obviously, you could have some similar damage, but, how does it differ this time around?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. We gassed up and checked all the generators. In this case, we sharpened the chainsaws and get some other equipment ready in case we need to get trees out of roadways. But staffing-wise, we still are sort of in the same boat we're in when we have, a big snowstorm heading our way. We have folks on standby. We have folks on standby statewide because we don't know exactly how this event is going to impact not only the coast but also inland. We see waters rise and culverts fail inland. Quite frequently, so it's not just a coastal event. With this one, we're coordinating a lot with MEMA. We have staff 24/7 as long as MEMA's Emergency Operations Center is going, and we have our own Emergency Ops Center that's communicating with those folks, and we're just kind of standing by and letting them know that we're there to help as soon as they need us.
And Paul, real fast with the time we have left here, we were talking about it earlier. It seems like Portland, obviously dodging a bullet, but Bangor actually seems like they're having more of an impact. Even Presque Isle had some rain and wind out of this. Was the state kind of positioned where they needed to be? This looked like it kind of shifted north and east at the last second. Are you guys where you need to be?
I mean, we've been tracking it all week, watching the forecast just like everybody. And, come yesterday, we kind of knew it was going to be a, eastern part of the state event and down east. But yeah, we have some closures in the county right now. But it's not just impacting the cone of the storm. It's not just impacting the coast. We do that. We're ready. But our message is, even if you're hundreds of miles away from Maine's coast, you still may be impacted by a storm like this that you would think only hits the usual suspects as far as coastline.
All right, good to hear from you, Paul. I appreciate you and your family, I think, giving us some time with you this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Paul Merrill from the Maine Department of Transportation.
And taking a live look outside right now over Casco Bay in Portland, you can see those cruise ships, it looks like, are still hanging out there in port.
I got to think that cruise ships have had bigger impacts than a lot of other people, obviously rerouting their teams, their ships, I should say. Chief Meteorologist Charlie Presti has been tracking this thing for a week and a half, actually, at this point, since it first popped up off the coast of Africa.
That's right.
Started heading towards the Caribbean and then up towards us.
You remember that, right?
Oh, yeah. We were talking about like a Tuesday. It's been like 10 days, 10, 11 days.
The day after Labor Day, it got a name, and yeah, it's been a long haul with Lee so far. I think I have some of the baby pictures of Lee back in the weather office.
And here it is, an old man. So
yeah, he's a mature old man. Here we go. And he's actually dying off later today anyway. Hey, all right, here's what to expect going forward here. We're looking at a few more power outages expected during the afternoon, I think. Not worst case scenario, far from worst case scenario. Hey, Ryan, I'm going to need those graphics again, bud. There we go. No, all right. Maybe I hit the button. My bad. Let's go back to this. We're looking at a few more power outages with winds gusting over 40 miles per hour. The waves are going to be a little bit of an issue. We're looking at waves up over 10 feet. Last check, Portland Buoy is reporting wave heights of about 9.2 feet. And we are at high tide right now, and I just checked out the tide gauge in Portland. We're about 1.5 feet below flood stage, which is great news here. So major coastal flooding was never expected to be an issue with this storm, but splash over and beach erosion is expected to continue to be an issue throughout the afternoon here. So the little storm system pulls away here. The storm now is no longer a hurricane. It's a post-tropical cyclone. It's basically a nor'easter. Basically what happens with these sort of setups, you have these hurricanes that move north into northern latitudes, and then they shear out. What happens is you have the wind that expands outwards from the center, and it happens with a lot of storms that have tropical origins. This one again started off the coast of Africa about 2 weeks ago. And there it is, moving up into the Bay of Fundy. Tomorrow is going to be a nice sunny day. I think we'll see a lot of sun. Many of you are seeing a lot of sun this afternoon as well. So it stays a little gusty out there. 35 to 45 mile per hour gusts should be expected this afternoon. The winds will slowly start to die off. I think a few of you, especially in central Maine, mid-coast down East Maine, you'll get some of your peak gusts probably over the next hour or two. Southern Maine, you've probably already seen your peak wind gusts here. So this afternoon, there will be additional gusts, probably around 40 miles per hour. At last check, Portland had a peak wind gust of about 43 miles per hour. Augusta, you're gusting around 50 miles per hour. Now, wave heights, there they are. They're up, I said 9.2 feet. Looks like in the last few minutes, we're up over 10 feet now at Portland Buoy. All right, winds are gusting, manageable at this point, over 30 miles per hour. Usually the threshold when the trees are foliated like this, I think for power outages, right around 40 miles per hour. Once you get over 40 miles per hour, that's when bad things start to happen. Hey, 3 months from now, 2 months from now, as the leaves are gone, the ground's frozen, we can handle 40 mile per hour winds any week, no problem, right? But with leaves on the trees, they sway around and you have some problems. We have not seen worst case scenario. At last check, I think CMP is reporting about 51,000 customers without power. I think if we keep it under 100,000, that's a win here. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Notice the winds still potentially gusting a little over 40 miles per hour, but as we go throughout the late day hours, we're starting to see marked improvement as those winds are back down right around 30 miles per hour or so. So it stays a little windy out there this afternoon, but the waves are still up there. We're at high tide right now. For more on what's happening out in the ocean, let's send it over to meteorologist Ryan Munn. Over to you.
Hey, Charlie, we are looking at some pretty big waves at the moment, and let's get a look at the wave heights at the moment. And you can see over towards down east, as expected, that's where we have some of the highest wave heights at this current time. And of course, over the open ocean, we're talking 15 to 20-foot waves off towards areas down to our south. That includes the Gulf of Maine over towards Jeffrey's Ledge, but then Penobscot Bay, 8 feet 10 feet over towards the Portland buoy at the moment, and down towards the western main shelf, we are looking at wave heights right around 5 feet. And as we head through the next several hours, and you can see this is around 2 o'clock, about 5 minutes ago or so, we had high tide here in the Portland area, and we are looking at these wave heights that are going to stay on the higher side through the afternoon and evening. And then once we get to later on this evening and tonight, they will slowly remain back to where they should be. And by the time we head out tomorrow morning, we are looking good. We are just going to see your typical wave heights anywhere between about 3 to 6 feet. But keep in mind, I do not recommend going into the water. There are going to be people that do it, however, and rip tides, rip currents, they are a thing, and we are looking at the chance for some rip currents in some of these waves. And if you ever find yourself in this situation where the current takes you out to sea, swim parallel to the sand. That is the biggest advice I can give you. And Charlie, I'll send it back to you.
Good advice there, Ryan. It's fun to watch the surfers out there, but if you don't have experience in big waves like that, it's probably a good idea to stay away from the high surf. Okay, so what's left of Lee continues to pull away during the afternoon. Many of you are already seeing some sun make an appearance. The exception mid-coast down east, that's where the heaviest rainfall is. Notice the clearing trend underway late today into tonight. Tomorrow is going to be a beautiful sunny day. We'll start you off early in the day tomorrow morning with temps in the 50s. Nice dry air masses in place. Afternoon temperatures should make it easily into the 70s. It's going to be beautiful tomorrow with a lot of sun. A little bit of rain moves back into the picture Monday. It's not a big deal, though. In the extended forecast, I think you're going to like, well, most of next week. A lot of sun, comfortable temperatures. And September, like lows for a change. We should be dipping into the 40s. Greg and Marissa, back to you guys.
All right, Charlie, thanks. At least it's a nice forecast to look forward to tomorrow and beyond.
Here's a live look outside. Once again, our Portland sky cam, Casco Bay, looking not too bad at all. But in the distance there, you can see some of those darker clouds from Hurricane, now post-tropical cyclone Lee. We'll continue our coverage when we come back. Welcome back to our extended coverage here live on CBS 13 on what was Hurricane Lee is no longer Hurricane Lee. I want to give you the updated numbers. About 51,000 CMP customers without power, about 32,000 or so Versant customers without power. If the old math still holds, again, these are customers, homes, businesses, not people, roughly 200,000 people in Maine are without power right now. So that gives you a sense of the scale. I mean, there's a lot of damage happening to our east here in Portland.
There's a lot of math going on in your head.
I was trying to do the math.
A lot of numbers.
2 point something.
It's 2 point, it used to be 2.5 and maybe a little less than
people
that now.
per
I got that
household
number for context
I like it.
during the ice storm of 98. So
Yep.
that's how old this data is in terms of what the multiplier is. You get the point. It's a lot of people without power right now.
Yeah, Charlie, you were thinking if we could keep it under 100,000 customers, that would
Which
be.
we're just under.
That's
yeah,
a win.
We're
between
right
Versant
about
and
there.
CMP.
Yeah, I think that's a win for us. Anytime you have any tropical system or even a nor'easter or anything like that, with gusts over 40 miles per hour with leaves on the trees. That should be a red flag that you're going to get some outages here. And as long as you can keep it under 100,000, that sort of setup, I think we're in pretty good shape. Additional outages, I think, are probably likely over the next few hours, especially central Maine, mid-coast, and down east Maine, as what's left of Lee continues to make its way off to the north. Waves are another big story. We heard from Dave. We heard from
Mal was out there.
Mal was out there earlier as well, and Asia was out there, and Emily. Waves are running around 10 feet right now at Portland Buoy. In fact, just over 10 feet, and we're just past high tide. The good news is high tide yielded about a 10-foot tide in Portland. Flood stage is 12 feet, so we're just a little bit below flood stage, which is great news there. But more beach erosion, splash over continues for the next hour or so. The sun's going to make an appearance from many areas this afternoon. A lot of you have already seen some sunshine. This is not a big rainmaker. We've been talking about that the last several days here. The afternoon is okay. Tomorrow looks beautiful. In the near term, though, just be prepared for a few more gusts, potentially over 40, and things start to wind down late this afternoon.
Yeah, and everyone heading out to look at the waves, just another reminder, stay safe.
Be careful. And we'll have a live update from NEMA. They're going to give us an update at 3 o'clock this afternoon. More coverage continuing as well on our website as well, WGME.com.
We'll see you there. In the meantime, have a great afternoon. Stay safe.